Tuesday, the 20th of March 2012. Fuck this for a game of soldiers. I'm cracking up. Day 1 out of work, and I need a job fast just to get out of this madhouse. It's the 4th consecutive day herself is at work, and I can feel the pressure already. It was my heart on Sunday. I was getting chest pains whilst trying to get the dinner organised on time. Today, it's tummy pains and tummy ache. The kids are driving me nuts, either looking for attention by somersaulting around the kitchen, or misbehaving by bitching and arguing. And baby has just decorated herself with her dinner, and now her nappy needs changing. The kitchen is in a complete mess, and our young lady is baking a lemon cake instead of preparing for her exam tomorrow morning. There is a mountain of clothes that could do with being washed. The maiden is full with the last lot I put out, so they need folding up and putting away. And it's nearly 7:30, and I still need to put a fire down. How in God's name all those single mothers out there cope is a miracle to me. God love 'em. If I don't get back to some deep breathing techniques or some relaxing and meditation soon, I'm going to blow a gasket. I'm too young to die, but you never know when your time is up. Perhaps old age looms. Depression can be harder to cure than cancer. Pressure and stress-related illnesses are rampant in this day and age. Meditation is a good antidote, but even a practicing meditator can get stressed out from time to time. We barely have enough food in, the electric bill is unpaid, my business account is overdrawn, my current account is overdrawn, our joint account is overdrawn, we won't meet the mortgage repayment this month, the car tax is overdue, the car failed its NCT, house and car insurance premiums went up again, and a big fat winter gas bill is due any day now. And on top of that, I lost my job for the umpteenth time. Shit happens. Mustn't grumble, says my internal director. Have faith and believe in nature. Providence will provide. I'm always telling the kids to have an attitude for gratitude and be grateful for what we have got and to focus on the positives. Goodness knows, I'll have to take a leaf out of my own book then, if only in order just to reclaim my humble sanity. After all my house husband duties, I spent some time doing some research and came across a very interesting chap by the name of Nassim Haramein. He was clearly from a scientific background and obviously very well educated. Interestingly, he was maintaining that modern science was falling way short of explaining the true nature of the solar system, and that what our kids were learning in school was utter hogwash. Apparently, physicists have been brushing stuff under the carpet they cannot officially explain. Sound familiar? It sounds like the government, the media, the church, and every other organisation and institution which the public are expected to trust. He presented information in this online lecture, a bit like a webinar, in a very accomplished manner, intermingling modern astronomy and physics with ancient cultures. He actually produced artifacts which demonstrated that some of these ancient cultures clearly had a more advanced astrological knowledge and documented it. This knowledge apparently originated from visitation to our planet by intelligent extraterrestrials. I won't go into too much detail until I have done a bit more research, but suffice it to say that these early civilizations clearly had an obsession with the sun, and oh boy, did they love pyramids. Perhaps our intergalactic visitors actually created us. Perhaps they were benevolent, but had to leave. Perhaps they were not so kind, and we were just like an experiment, a bit like humans do with rats. Perhaps they understood the universe and could time travel. Perhaps it's us, but from the future. Or, like Credo Mutwa says, perhaps we are just food for alien reptilians called the Chitahori, who control the planet and have been here a long, long time. One thing is for sure, the idea that we have progressed as a species seems to be very foolish indeed. If anything, the ancient civilizations were much more advanced than we are taught in our schools, where the image of primitive man in a cave does not quite fit with the archaeological finds, including stone circles and other monuments precisely aligned with stars in our modern solar system and dating back to around 10,000 BC. All of this might appear to be a bit crazy at first, but the more one encounters different stories and accounts from different cultures all over the world, a pattern emerges whereby it becomes very difficult to believe the bullshit peddled by the likes of the Catholic Church that we are all born into sin. Actually, it would be remiss to target just Catholicism when so many other religious orders could lay claim to such a bloody history, that the use of the Iron Maiden and other torture devices would look pretty tame. The unimaginable horrors and terrible suffering inflicted on people by the likes of the Jesuits and other priests and orders to help non-believers convert were sick and evil, though undoubtedly ruthlessly effective. The Church ruled through fear and took land, money and power, but with the conviction they had the right to do so, whilst preaching compassion and forgiveness. With all respect to the good religious people out there, and there are some of course, there are other folk who are so gullible that they do not deserve any sympathy. Unfortunately, some folk have been so terribly repressed and oppressed by religion that even up to this day and age, they need counselling and therapy and nurturing back to some grip on their critical thinking faculties. The apparent state-sponsored erosion of these critical thinking faculties is a threat from which we must guard our children today. Blind obedience is championed. Accepting, unthinking submission to what they call in the UK nanny state is rewarded. From GMO foods to chemtrails, it is hard to dispute that we are being poisoned. Our rivers, lakes, our seas, the air, our water supply, our food. Why? Legislation to protect us and enforce regulation has been circumnavigated. Why? Laws are passed which help the pharmaceutical companies get richer. Why? And all the time, with this going on, people who challenge the authorities are regarded as terrorists, crazy, or simply called conspiracy nuts. Again, I ask, why? Take what happened here in Ireland, where the subjects of abuse at the hands of twisted and sick individuals in positions of power in the church has left a dark stain upon the minds and lives of innocent people. Children, little boys and girls, some even encouraged by their parents, who, in some cases, only thought they were doing what was best, were sent along to, for example, a parish priest, an unaccountable man wearing a dress, who ritually sexually abused these children for his own sick gratification. Many of these children have now reached their 40s or 50s and are not afraid to speak out about what happened to them. It is worthy to note that their bravery is commendable, and I sincerely hope that they come to terms with their demons. I was lucky enough that even though my parents split up, which was of course rather damaging psychologically to the mind of this young child, they're decent people, and whilst fairly inexperienced as parents, they were not in the grip of the church, and thank God did not engage in abusing me or my brother, or send us to some place where we were in danger of being sexually abused. To make matters worse, when people started to come out and tell the truth about what had been covered up, the church and the state, rather than recommend that public apologies be made and compensation offered to the victims, unbelievably, they continued to maintain that such behaviour was, if not acceptable, merely forgivable. Then there were also the much publicised accounts of the inhabitants of the Magdalene laundries, who were usually young women who were institutionalised in washhouses run by nuns, families worried by what others might think, or families who were threatened with being considered unworthy of respect in the local community might send their daughters to one of these places thinking that as a correctional facility it might help them. However, at the hands of religious people in positions of trust, they were treated horribly and were physically and sexually abused with such contempt, disgust and disregard that the accounts of those who survived beggared belief. All because they were considered of so-called ill repute, or they'd fallen pregnant outside of wedlock, had been forced to give up their child, and were thus somehow beyond the pale, according to this sick society and twisted religion. Unfortunately, there are too many examples in human history where an organisation representing virtue and appearing to attract those with strong moral values is inherently evil and corrupt at heart. An organisation marginalising those people who probably needed help, understanding and compassion the most, if not more, than others. Institutions which were meant to help the most vulnerable, not prey upon them. I have always been interested in natural history, philosophy, psychology, anthropology and archaeology, but it never fails to astound me what we as people, as individuals, are prepared to believe or dismiss. There are worlds out there of which we are completely unaware, yet we are taught to think we know everything. In school, they told us that Columbus discovered America in 1492. He did in his arse. There were people living there already, and they were happy enough to be free from the guns and diseases of the white man. In school, they taught us everything but the things we would need to know in life, like how to get a job, how to open a bank account, how to make a roast dinner or erect a tent, cross a river, weld a joint, paint a door, hang a gate, make a fire, or travel across a continent. Instead, they made us learn bullshit facts and rewarded our ability to remember them. Now, I doubt everything. Actually, come to think of it, I probably always did. I reckon we've been lied to from the cradle to the grave, and I reckon the only thing I can be certain about is love. History is made by the winners. How can we trust what we are told about history? Memories can be wiped and supplanted. I love my wife and kids, I love my parents, and I love my brothers and sisters. I know I do, since I feel it. Everything else could be a lie. Atomic physics and nuclear physics I often found quite difficult to grasp, but easier for me than mathematics. This enigmatic physicist Harriman ticks all the boxes for me. He is engaging, good-humoured, and presents the information in a way which is comprehensible, palatable to the layman. In this modern era, we have much more freedom of information than we ever did before. But of course, this means we also have much more misinformation and disinformation. Be aware that access to information via the likes of Wikipedia, an online encyclopedia, will usually only yield the mainstream official line on everything we might want to have some information about. What appeals to me about this guy Harriman is that he is a bit of a maverick, telling it how it is, and not saying what the authorities want him to say to meet with their approval. So go and check him out. For example, he points out that millions and millions are wasted building particle accelerators, the last one being about 17 miles long, so that we can collide subatomic particles, only to discover that the very smallest we have discovered, quarks or whatever, are actually comprised of like 99.999% space. The smaller we go, the smaller the particle, and guess what? Same result. 99.99% nothing. Well, not nothing, since nothing is something. Yeah, I know, nuts. One thing is for sure, there is definitely something extremely sinister about the unholy alliance of the District of Columbia in America, the City of London in England, and the Vatican City in Rome in Italy. They have unbelievable wealth and control over money, power and religion. I found it very interesting about how these city-states evolved outside the remit of nation-states, what they were about, and how they came to be what they are today. Not a lot of people seem to know about this stuff. Plenty of others have attempted to be whistleblowers. Big pharmaceutical companies, oil companies, food terrorists Monsanto, and other transnational corporations have all silenced genuine people from airing their concerns. Many say English author and conspiracy researcher David Icke has not been bumped off yet because he is in on it. Who knows? Icke, for example, contends that the information which is made public via the media channels and corporations owned by these organisations, via the moguls like Rupert Murdoch, is pretty much spoon-fed bile for idiots and part of a wider interdimensional conspiracy where we are all victims of mind control. If you saw the front cover of the Sun newspaper, it would be hard not to agree with him. However, unless you are high up in the Freemasons or other such secret elite cabals, descending from the Knights Templar, you're unlikely to know about the truth or the actual agenda, which, as filmmaker Aaron Russo told us before he died, after meeting with and having been entreated by one of the Rockefellers, would happen to include a few nice surprises. Take, for example, a false flag terrorist attack in order to pass laws to detain people without right to a trial. Mass microchipping of the remaining human population after a mass cull due to a big war or virus, and mass panic and hysteria when alien visitors are revealed confirmed. You have been warned. We've all been warned. Apparently, this stuff is all coming, whether we believe it to be true or not, or whether we like it or not. Fantastic, isn't it?